Greetings, Earthlings. Welcome to episode 8, which I have pre-entitled Stories with Reekwind. Now I'm going to talk to Reekwind, because it just makes sense. This man is looking at you with a strange, bug-eyed stare. His eyes are huge. So huge they look ready to pop out of his sockets and roll across the cobblestones. He nods eagerly as you approach, bobbing his head like a bird. As you near him, you suddenly notice the smell of urine and feces surrounding him. Greetings. The man sniffles, wiping his nose on his sleeve, then opens his mouth to reveal blackened, rotted gums. Stories for coin, sirrah? His breath reeks. It smells like this man has been keeping rotten meat stored inside his mouth. Stories for coin? Who are you? The man snorts, thick with phlegm. Names, who you are. His head does a slight twitch every time he repeats himself. Names. Dangerous. He glances at the ground and stirs the dirt with his foot. Dangerous? How? Knowing a name or being stuck with one, both's a mess of trouble. He looks back at you. My name's a given name, not one asked for. Reekwind. Once again you become conscious of his reeking breath and the smell of urine and feces that surrounds him. A given name. An appropriate name. Not my true name. Reekwind mumbles on, his head twitching every time he says name. True name's a dangerous thing, gives others power. He stares at you with his huge eyes and wags his finger. Keep your name secret, keep it close, never let it out. What do you mean? Names are like smells. Things can track you with them. Reekwind coughs, his eyes almost popping out of his skull as he does so. His cough seems to loosen his bowels, for he breaks wind loudly, as if to accentuate his point. If someone knows a true name, it gives them power. He licks his lips. The power to hurt. I don't know my true name. Reekwind's eyes widen. Seeing his eyeballs bulge even larger makes you uneasy. Then you are blessed. Remain nameless, and you shall be as a spirit on the plains, untraceable, untrackable, unseen, undiscovered. He smacks his gums wetly. A name chosen, a name given, it allows others to find you and hurt you. Have you been hurt? Reekwind gives a twitching nod, then scratches himself. Let my name slip once, only once. His eyes film over as if the memory is painful, then glances at you uneasily. Tell you the story I will, but 3 coppers must I see. His face splits into a smile as he says the word coppers, and the reeking breath hits you like a hammer. Very well, here's 3 copper. Since I have 1,600, I should be okay. Reekwind gets into a stance, looks left, looks right, then faces you. His face clenches, then with a grunt, he breaks wind again. The smell nearly levels you, but he takes no notice. Cursed I walked the wards in splendor. He stands up stiffly, nose high in the air. He saunters back and forth, nodding to invisible passers-by. Reekwind freezes, his arms akimbo, crossed paths with a crossed one. He had the look of a pumpkin, his seeds curses. Reekwind then thrusts his belly out so as to appear fat, sticks back his hair with his filthy palms so he looks almost bald, and begins drumming his fingers up on his fat belly. He then walks about, circling the spot where his stuffy upper-class persona used to be. All a jumble with curses, this one was. With a sneer and a careless gesture, Reekwind tosses an invisible curse at the stuffy persona. Knew my name, let it slip. I had, all it took it all. He stiffens up again, inhaling deeply and resuming his upper-class persona. The persona suddenly crumples, and Reekwind breaks wind violently, then exhales, filling the air with his foul-reeking breath. Cursed with stenches, smells, excrement, came here to tell tales, all good for now. Now Reekwind is the name, given name. I see. I had some other questions. Questions. Reekwind hunches over, regarding you warily with his huge eye. Can you tell me where I can find someone named Farid? Reekwind suddenly hunches over and leers at you. He walks around for a moment, dragging his leg as if lame. King, a noble tale, a tale I can tell, but 3 coppers must I see. Very well, here's 3 copper. Reekwind remains hunched over, staring at you. Once a man of respect, Farid was, a man of goals and position. All became nothing, nothing turned to air. Reekwind squints, then breaks wind, filling the air with a gut-churning smell. Turned to air and stink. A liar, a cheater, a man who twisted law, Farid was. He hunches over as if writing at a desk. He writes for a moment, then suddenly stops, afraid. Then one day, he found that he had twisted himself. Such a liar that he had become that when he died, he was to go to a horrible place. Reekwind shakes his head sadly, then hunches over again and looks wildly in all directions. Farid would not accept it. Would not. He had cheated others. He would cheat his fate too. He read, dug in books, and consulted seers. Reekwind stalks back and forth, his hand over his eyes, and is staring off into the distance. And they told him that only in trash could he find that which would let him cheat his fate. Reekwind breaks wind again, and gives a reeking cough. Perhaps they lied. Reekwind stands up stiffly, then begins to fling off imaginary clothes. With every piece of clothing he throws away, he becomes more hunched. Farid threw away his position, his goals, and took up a new title. Reekwind stops, then leers at you. He claws at his rags, shaking them, and he became a king of rags. He would rule the trash, have his subjects search it all, and find that which he needed. He shakes his head. He looks, even now. Do you know where I can find him? Reekwind shakes his head. He lives among the rags and trash. There you will find him. And some other questions. I'd like to hear a story. Tell you a story I will, but 3 coppers I must see. His face splits into a smile, and his reeking breath hits you like a hammer. Very well, here's 3 copper. Takes the copper, gums it, then to your surprise, he swallows it. Best purse there is. Belly. He gives a reeking wheeze. A story. He smacks his lips, scratching his dirty rags. Wait for him to choose the story. Spireward. He points to his left at the charred alley in the distance, an alley of dangerous angles. He bends his limbs in a twisted parody of one of the skeletal buildings. Not always angled, not always burned and charged, once alive, no longer. Flames, fire. He flings his hand up in the air, then waves them to simulate flames. The alley burned, great smoke, ash everywhere. In the end, only skeletons of buildings left, bones of dead buildings, angles, everywhere, angles. He hunches forward, his voice a whisper. Again, the stench from his body hits you like a wave. Dangerous now. Bad men have set up their kip there. He bows, then breaks wind in quick spurts like a bugle blowing. That is the tale of how this street becomes an alley of dangerous angles. How did the fire start? He makes a semicircle over his heart. A man made it so. A beast made it so. A man who even fiends admire. Who? A sorcerer's tale filled with madness, sadness, burning, yearning. A tale I can tell, I will, but 3 coppers I must see. He hisses, then cackles in a way that reminds you of a fire burning. A dangerous tale. Very well, here's 3 copper. So he's got like 12 from me now, which isn't that big of a deal. A sorcerer was there, no simple hedge wizard this, but a mage of power. Reekwind brings his hands together reverently, then smiles evilly. He burned with the art, and the art burned him. The name given him was Ignis, a name respected, then feared, then hated, then punished. Reekwind gives a rattling wheeze, then claws the air and hisses, apparently imitating Ignis. Taught by one of the great magi, Ignis was, and as an apprentice, Ignis learned much, and nothing at the same time. Reekwind shakes his head sadly. In his heart, his whole coal-black heart, a fire blazed. It burned, and it hungered. Reekwind claws at his chest, as if in pain. As it hungered, Ignis hungered. It was his wish to see the plains burn. In the night, Reekwind hunches down and begins to slowly stalk in the direction of the alley, a mad grin on his face. Ignis came to the alley. That was to be the alley of angles, and the fire in his eyes, the fire in his heart, both he let out. Reekwind points at the alley, then flings his arms into the air, silently screaming and laughing at the same time. Flesh ran like wax, people like candles, and Ignis laughed. Reekwind crumples to the ground, his body racked with imagined pain. An evil was done, and forgotten not. He stands up, then hunches over, looks left, looks right, then starts mumbling as if secretly in conference with someone. Something was to be done. He stands up stiffly, his face resolute. A punishment was decided. All the head wizards, midwives, rune tellers, copper-pinching witches, all manner of magelings, they came, all, even those with the smallest trait of the art, to punish Ignis. Separately, they were flies. He makes a buzzing noise between his rotten gums. Together, dangerous. He hums, then raises his hands. Caught Ignis, granted his wish. He swirls his hands as if casting a spell. He wished to burn, they granted it, using his own desire to fuel the casting. They made his body a door to the plane of fire. They intended to kill him. Failed. Reekwind breaks wind again, as if to accentuate the failure of the wizard. Ignis lived, only slept. Blanket of flames, turned in his sleep as he burned, never happier. He shuts his eyes, wraps his arms around himself, and turns slowly, burning, ever burning. His eyes suddenly snap open. One day he will wake, and then the plains shall burn. An unfortunate tale. I had some other questions for you. Now let's ask about a journal. Nope. Boring. Alright. Can you tell me about this area? The hive. A tale I can tell, I will, but 3 coppers must I see. Nope, that one I've already heard. And then let's ask about that. Okay, I want to hear the story. I am asking this, the nameless one. I want to hear the story of the man who came to this city without name or memory and spoke with the cursed storyteller who warned him of the danger of names. Reekwind stops twitching and scratching for a moment and stares at you. That tale costs nothing, for it is worth nothing. It is worth noting that it would be a sad tale indeed. Nevertheless, I would hear it. Reekwind says, where would such a tale begin? Reekwind grunts, then gives a reeking wheeze that makes your eyes tear up. He seems to be thinking. The nameless one says, it would begin with a man waking up in the mortuary, believed dead, but in truth only his memories are dead. Reekwind nods, then studies you and starts scratching himself violently, as if to give himself scars. Dead, but not dead. No memories, no name. The nameless one. He escapes the mortuary, enters the hive, and speaks to the man who let his true name slip once and has regretted it. Reekwind seems hypnotized by your words. Yes, much danger in naming. Perhaps, he pauses, perhaps the man to whom the nameless one speaks is a warning to the danger of names. He seems to choose this over. Perhaps he who has forgotten his name is better off? The nameless one replies, is he? Is it better to suffer the truth with all of its consequences, or is it better to remain ignorant? Which of the two men is better off? Reekwind gives a hacking cough, then spits, the spittle green and wet. Then turns his back to you. It is your question, your tale, he speaks slowly. It is you who must answer it. So, I answer with what I think. The man who knows his true name is better off, for he knows himself and is the stronger person for it. Reekwind mulls this over, licking his lips. Perhaps... hold on. He begins to nod slowly, then mumbles under his breath, as if debating with himself. Eventually he turns back to you. That is a tale with a moral that tells the teller's morals. He coughs and spits another phlegmy gob onto the cobblestones. A tale that will answer itself. In time. And then the nameless one answers... Truth. It must have an answer, and every tale has an ending. I will refuse to accept it any other way. Reekwind scratches himself for a moment, nodding, then reaches into the folds of his robe and flicks you a coin. For such a tale, a clipped copper, he sneers. No more, for the tale's not finished. Farewell. Excellent. I've always wanted a clipped copper. Well, I mean, not really, but I have one now. Oh, I can identify it. That's promising. Yay, a lucky coin. I might use it at some point, but for now, the episode is done, and I will be selling things between episodes because you don't really care how many copper things I sell.